So good afternoon. Thank you all so much for joining us for Reinvention, what to ask yourself before changing careers. Many job seekers are trying to reinvent themselves. They do this because the world is changing around us rapidly and they need to keep up or want to switch to a new field. But what does reinvention exactly mean? What are the benefits, the costs, and the risks? What questions must be answered before attempting a career change? Join us to learn how to leverage your skills, your passion, and the job market as part of your own career transition. You'll receive a list of resources and recommended books and be ready to formulate your own plan. And this is led by the one and only Ed Lawrence, who's a professional resume and profile writer who is dedicated to helping people gain meaningful employment or transition to a new career. A certified technical trainer and instructional designer for over 30 years, Ed understands the challenges in career transition, having moved from marketing to IT to training and to finally career coaching. Ed hasn't just read about job transition theory, he has lived it. Having been laid off multiple times, he knows a bit about what you're going through and how you may feel. So Ed is also a certified professional career coach, a certified professional resume writer, and a national certified online profile expert. And he is certified in the Myer-Briggs, the DISC, the Skillscan, and the strong interest assessments. For over 7 years, he has facilitated a practice interview group for the unemployed, and he is the official resume writer for the Framingham Public Library. I wish the Tewksbury Library had an official resume writer, Ed. And I again want to thank the Friends of the Library for sponsoring. So all 45 of us or so who are watching live and the many more that will watch the recording, let's give a big virtual round of applause to Ed for joining us today. And Ed, you can take it away. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Robert. Okay, so welcome to Reinvention. Here is my summary slide for everything that Robert just talked about, me. I encourage you, if we are not connected on LinkedIn, please do. Love to build the network, help out more people. And Robert already mentioned, yes, you will receive a PDF of these slides. So I hope that it'll come in handy to you. I think this is a very important topic. So again, good afternoon, everybody. I thank you all for coming. First, because by attending, you show me you aren't like the guy you see on this slide. You know what he's doing? He's applying for jobs online. Yes, it feels so good when he clicks that apply button because he just knows that every time, he'll be a winner. Even though the chances of landing a job through online applications is around 3%. But you, on the other hand, just by being here, you show interest in doing more than using hope as your strategy. You want to plan. You want to be prepared. And if you're willing to prepare, odds are you will actually formulate an actual plan with steps. And I'm going to show you how you can plan to reinvent yourself. So again, thank you for showing up to learn about reinventing yourself for the 21st century economy. Now, the very fact that you're here today indicates you've experienced some setbacks or are having difficulties. And here's my guess for how you feel today. You don't care about the allegedly low overall unemployment rate, especially if you are currently unemployed. You don't care how well Wall Street is doing. You worry about Main Street. You've applied to dozens of jobs, so you know firsthand how companies want the perfect candidate, ghost applicants, and just don't care about you. And you've attended plenty of networking events, so you realize, and this is good, you're not alone in how you feel. Okay, that's our present. But what about the future? Your likely future depends on your current circumstances. For example, are you in one of these jobs or fields? Here you see the top 10 fastest growing jobs. But what if you're in one of these 10 areas. Here are the top 10 fastest declining jobs. And of course, then there are all the other roles and jobs. How should we feel? What's going on there? You know, you could still be nervous or confused. I mean, this job market right now is unsettled for both employed people and job seekers. Best course of action generally right now is to follow Reid Hoffman's advice. Train yourself, invest in yourself, stay current, start thinking about reinvention. But what does it mean to reinvent oneself? So here's a definition, courtesy of Shauna Waters, PhD. It means identifying patterns, values, activities. They no longer serve you, and you want to swap them out for something better. And typically, this comes about because the reinvention is going to relate to something outside of yourself. Your job, hobbies, appearance, relationships. Reinvention can apply to much more than the job, of course. True reinvention, though, is going to require something inside you. You've got to change how you think, and that will lead to changing how you behave. As my friend and colleague Tammy Guler-Loeb says, you're going to work from the inside out. And this will allow for choice differentiation, self-promotion. So you're going to have to do an extensive self-examination. Now, I'm going to mention to you throughout this presentation, you're going to see a lot of questions that I suggest you try to answer before you start actually doing things and implementing grandiose plans just because they worked for someone else, for example. A number of them will be in italics, and those are questions that I took from Tammy. So now we're going to start digging into these. The term reinvention, as I just mentioned, can be used in many different ways. It can refer to a journey of self-discovery, finding your reason for being, breaking bad habits, adopting a new life skill. But for you, for the job seekers, the term is used to refer to a major career change. Perhaps you want to transition to a new and different career because of ageism or a disappearing industry. Maybe your skills are no longer relevant, or maybe you just desire more meaning in your life. Okay, these are 4 of many possibilities. Whatever your reasons, you're going to have to do a lot of thinking, and you're going to have to ask a lot of questions. And this is not easy. It can be a heavy load. Every journey has a starting point. What's yours? Consider these 3 questions. What are you doing with your work life presently? What feels exciting or satisfying? Where have things lost their luster? You really should try to answer those later. Your answers will help you figure out why you are considering reinventing yourself and thus how to proceed. And those 3 questions are just your starting point. Look at all these questions I came up with. These questions even will lead you to more. You're going to need help uncovering the answers. You'll likely start asking other people for information, opinions, but please don't ask them the one I put in red. What should I do? You'll be tempted to do that, but you must ultimately supply that answer yourself because it's your life. No one else is you. So they can't answer that for you. I don't want you to focus on any specific question. I want you to understand it's critical to answer these type questions before you attempt a career transition. Because if you don't answer these questions, you're basically operating blindly, making assumptions, or trying to take, I will say, plans that other people came up with and make them fit your own mindset. Too many people don't plan. They don't prepare. They charge ahead blindly. And why? And a big answer to that is because they're afraid. And why are they afraid? Because you have responsibilities. And once upon a time, you invented yourself. Think back to when you were a child. Looking back, it seems we learned a lot more quickly then. Other than the occasional fear of maybe failing a school course, we didn't fear much else. Our parents bore most of the burden for us. Most parents hide the finances from their children. And many of us were able to go out and play. That's how we learn, through playing and experimenting. And we learned what we liked and didn't like. We may even have discovered why we were interested in some things. But now, well, we had to grow up. We followed our dreams for a while, at least. And along the way, we took on more responsibilities. And that's why today you have fear, uncertainty, and doubt. FUD. You fear you'll lose what you have accumulated. You want certainty that whatever you do will work, that you will land the job, save the house, and you'll be safe. You have doubt because of all that's happened to you and the uncertain state of the job markets. I encourage you, do not follow pseudo-psychology that preaches simply feeling good or says, I did it, so can you. Instead, best thing you can do is be honest with yourself and admit the FUD, the fear, the uncertainty, the doubt. Because if you don't do that, you'll never overcome them, you'll never face them, and you could wind up paralyzed. So again, acknowledge your fears, uncertainty, and doubts. Because then you're going to be able to face reality and face those, even if they're not real. And then you can proceed with the reinvention process. Now, if you can put aside the FUD and just describe your dream to yourself, it likely contains conditions or attributes of past experiences that you enjoyed. And as you start thinking about this, you can add in more elements that you believe would enhance the picture to create a more satisfying and meaningful career. After you finish composing your dream, I encourage you, put it aside for a day or two. And after some time has passed, then pick it up again and reread it. Does it still make sense? Meaning, does it still resonate with you? It may still just be a dream. So if somebody could tell you it doesn't make sense, but does it resonate with you? Is this something you like to work on? And then start tweaking it, make the little changes. And again, repeat this a bit until you have a list or an idea that you say, yeah, this is it. This is what I can see myself doing as a result of reinvention. So congratulations. You just summed up your aspirations. Now, what we've discussed is studying and then recording your aspirations. Once you've gotten to that point, it's time to explore the world around you. Eventually, you'll have to figure out how to connect your inner dream with the outside world. Career experts refer to the skills that enable this exploration process as learning and work exploration competencies. I encourage you to Google that term. You'll find a lot of useful articles and videos to help you out and continue beyond this presentation. You'll develop these competencies by turning the results of your personal exploration into plans that account for what you see here, your aspirations, assets, and the market. As you just saw, your aspirations are your thoughts recorded, your plans written down, your dreams with a target date. Your assets include your skills, your qualifications, and personal traits, plus every tangible or countable asset you have. Anything that can be counted, sold, or used in some way. And the market basically refers to how much will people pay you. That's what it all comes down to. Your career plans, your reinvention plan must account for all three. If your assets, aspirations, and skills aren't aligned, your plan most likely won't work. One of the most important factors is, of course, will someone pay you for your new skills? Do not assume someone will pay you top dollar for that new certification. or when you apply for an entry-level position in the new field. As an example, let's consider something many of us can do: write. If you think about becoming a writer in your next role, what do you want to write about? Would you rather be an influencer blogger, a newspaper reporter, or a best-selling author? There's great demand for bloggers, but it doesn't usually pay much, if at all. There's almost no demand for newspaper reporters. The industry's dying. Publishers are always looking for the next bestseller, but the odds are long. J.K. Rowling allegedly showed her manuscript for Harry Potter series to a dozen publishers before one accepted it. And it takes time to write a book, potentially years. How would you support yourself in the meantime? John Grisham worked as a lawyer while he wrote his novels at night. J.K. Rowling was on welfare for a while. Well, some people say follow your passion. Oh, passion's great for long-term career satisfaction, great motivator for career transition, but it doesn't necessarily pay the bills. Yes, hiring managers and recruiters want passion, but even more want a matching skill set. How will you build that new skill set? And which of your current skills are transferable? So again, as I was saying for the last slide and this slide, everything ideally has to align. So even after you've answered so many of these questions and begin to formulate your plan, you will still want further information about yourself and the markets. Fortunately, in this day and age, there are plenty of ways to learn about yourself and then the markets. So again, especially here in the Northeast, plenty of counselors, coaches, agencies such as Mass Hire, where you can find personality assessments, behavioral assessments, and so on, as you see here, many for free. And then, of course, through the internet, aren't we so lucky to have the internet for this? You know, we can look at Department of Labor sites, most notably the great website ONET. Okay. If you went to school, you know, notably universities, colleges, very often you have access to libraries or their alumni sites. You know, there are alumni networks. Okay. You can go out and have informational sessions with people who are in the field. You try to talk with those people. Get advice, information, referrals. And then, of course, we have business journals and newspapers, so many of which are still available for free online. So I've shown you a lot of questions you should ask yourself and given you a general process. You might want to try to organize it. And if you notice these circles, you can see all these intersecting circles have categories. And the concept here we're showing you is called ikigai. Ikigai refers to the purpose for being or meaning of life. And according to a 2020 study, it can be an excellent framework for guiding new career seekers to find purpose-driven work. It's pretty easy. Choose a circle, compile your thoughts. As you build and fill your list, you will see commonalities, intersections between circles. And where the 4 circles overlap is your ikigai, your purpose. Okay. And by the way, even if you feel you already know your purpose, you might want to consider using these diagrams. Pretty cool to see, you know, where the intersections of all your skills, qualification, traits, and passion happen to be. So eventually you're going to come to the point you'll say, I've done a lot of research. I've worked from the inside out. I know my skills, qualifications for the new role, my personal traits. I've researched the labor markets. I'm satisfied it's stable or growing field. And hey, if you're lucky, you may already have most of the required skills, or you realize, hey, I could pick them up via some training. You think you know your new destination. You know it's the right place for you. Well, maybe you're right. But before signing up for some expensive program, you should do a final check. First thing I would encourage you to do is ask yourself, do you know your why? Why are you doing all this? Why do you want to make the specific transition? Why is this the right move for you? Secondly, go do those informational sessions or interviews that I talked about. Find people who already do the type work you think you want to do, or maybe find a graduate of a program. Somebody already got the certificate you're thinking of trying to get. Talk to them. They can tell you whether your research was accurate. They can help you figure out, is the job what you thought it is? What's their response after you relate why you want to make the move? And if after 2 or 3 sessions you've received good feedback and you like what you heard, then it's probably time to switch from researching to doing. That is, start the transition. Could be as simple as enrolling in training, or it could be as simple as, hey, I'm going to apply to a bunch of roles. Now, one thing you have to be aware of, there is a difference between deciding to do things and actually doing them. I'm going to encourage you, if you're online, the 45 or so people, read these 3 bottom lines. 3 frogs on a log in a swamp. One decides to jump in the water. And I ask you right now, how many frogs are on the log in the swamp? And Robert, if we get anything in the chat or questions area, please tell me what people answer. Anybody write anything? Okay, I see the numbers going up, but I don't hear Robert. Well, let's see. Very good. I am seeing a lot of 3s. I saw a couple of 2s and 0s. But yes, deciding is not doing. I once decided to go to law school. I applied. I was accepted. I never went to law school. So like me back then, you may have decided, but the actual doing is yet to come. What will you do to go from where you are now to your desired destination? This is how, you can see the slide, I hope, how most people envision reinvention or the path to a new career. This is how many career experts present it. Looks simple and easy, doesn't it? I'm on the old path, I get some new training, and I'm gonna pivot. I'm confident at least a few of you have already been through this. You got your PMP or a certificate in Agile, maybe even took a full curriculum at New Horizons Learning Centers. Few of you may have landed a new job at a new field right away, but the statistics show it doesn't work out so quickly for the majority. Consider any big transition you've planned in the past or that you're thinking of now. You've decided on a new role or to obtain a valued certification such as the PMP, CISSP, CPRW even. And you may be feeling a bit overwhelmed because your research shows, oh, you'll have to do so much, and you may freeze. You have trouble getting started. If this happens to you, focus on just a few elements and break them down into smaller pieces or building blocks that you envision will move you closer to your desired outcome. Then make a list of actions that can achieve 1 or 2 of even those smaller outcomes. Repeat is necessary. I like to joke, wash, rinse, repeat. If some of these smaller steps still daunt you, break them down into even smaller steps. You may even get to the point of something like, I have to visit the Adobe website to research the cost of Adobe Acrobat courses. Yeah, at least that will get you maybe to visit the website and check out the pricing. Now, if you break them down too far and happen to look at your steps later and you've got like 100 individual steps broken out, you go, what am I thinking here? I'm making this, too crazy. Well, just reverse it. Combine a few of them together. The goal, after all, is to create a manageable plan that you can enact and thus raise the probability of your success, even if just by a bit. Every step taken, every building block added can be viewed as success. Now here we see a career path and the envisioned pivot. You may have thought, oh, gain those new skills, pivot, land the new high-paying job, right? Reality, however, as I just discussed, doesn't always match what we envision or what is presented to us by others. It can take time to gain new skills. You may not be able to drop career number 1 and immediately switch to career number 2. If you're trying to build new habits, you may slip or revert back to your old ways. It may require some less paying experience in the new field before you can land the envisioned high-paying job there. You probably have bills to pay, so must continue in the old field for a bit. And your pivot soon may look something like this. You're continuing on your path, adding some skills, taking some steps, trying to get further away. And this succession of attempted pivots could happen multiple times. Now, as you progress along this career path of pivots and roles, you will encounter traps. And one of them is overusing burnout skills. Those are the skills you're good at doing, but you don't like using. You will be tempted to use them again and again because employers will likely pay you more for them than compared to your newer skills. You'll say to yourself, well, I have to take this higher paying job because I've got bills to pay. Write this down. Burnout skills lead to the pit of despair. Burnout skills lead to the pit of despair. Please, instead, focus on what I call motivated skills, the skills you're good at and enjoy doing. They are the skills you probably highlighted in your career transition plan. They are the ones that typically lead to career satisfaction. So I'm going to show you a couple of examples of career transition. And the first example is actually me. I have a couple of slides about some of my transitions. I went to Boston University, majored in marketing. After landing my first major job, I went to school at night and majored in IT because I envisioned computers as being the future. So my first transition was from marketing into computers and IT. And that complete transition took about 3 years. My next transition was from systems analysis to training. I started off by volunteering at work, where I was a systems analyst, to teach customers. I took speech courses, and I landed a high-tech training role. So that took about 2 years. My next attempted transition was from high-tech to law. I had hired a career counselor, took some assessments, decided law seemed doable, and even enrolled in a paralegal program to verify I liked the field. I took the LSAT and was accepted by several law schools. The markets, my passion, and my transferable skills all aligned with this decision at the time. So like the frog, I decided, but never completed the action. Life got in the way. I had bills to pay and could not go to law school at night and travel as I did for the high-tech roles where, yes, I admit I was earning big bucks. And of course, I had responsibilities. Notably, my wife decided she wanted out of a condo and to get a nice house. So as you see here, I continued with high-tech, but I continued trying to change. I became an instructional designer in addition to a trainer and a certified technical trainer, which is a very difficult certification to achieve and really did help me in that career. But I also continued working with the career counselor. And meanwhile, out in the real world, we'll say, the market's changed. Over time, wow, way too many lawyers out there. The cost of law school still skyrocketed. So it really didn't, seem to be a viable option for anymore. Worked with the career counselor looking for, well, what are the transferable skills I have that were applicable in law and might be good in something else? And that led her to introducing me to some other counselors, which in turn led to coaching and resume writing and brought me to you today. Now, if you note the timeline, you can see this transition compared to the other previous ones took quite a while. Yeah, it took me a while to get here. Now I've got one more example for you, and this encompasses ABC career planning, which some of you may have heard of. It's a concept, to my knowledge, pioneered by Reid Hoffman, the co-founder of LinkedIn and author of a great book, The Startup of You. So this scenario is taken from the book. So here you see plan A for Pat, calling her. Pat is the supervisor of a mortgage approval team at a national bank. She was a branch manager for 2 years at a smaller local bank before moving to the national chain. Her experience in the banking fields varied, but she finds the financial field to be boring. Her real passion, healthcare. Hey, and that fits with today's economy. A lot of jobs in healthcare, aging of America and all. And she likes project management. So you can see here her long-term goal would be, I want to be a consultant. She made 3 columns before the goal, showing the required training, the relationships she could leverage, and what jobs she anticipates might be interim jobs before she can really become a consultant. So to enable this career change, she just started an MBA program at a Boston area college. She realized she values more autonomy and freedom in her role, likes being in charge, being a leader, and doesn't like staying in one position very long. So one of her colleagues guided her towards the project management certificate, the PMP. So then she also spoke with some counselors who talked to her about ABC career planning. And she came up with a plan B. Well, if I'm not able to become a consultant, maybe before then, or along the way, I could become a financial project manager. So she sees here, I don't need the PMP for that. Notice the difference in the required training. The relationships that she could utilize, leverage, that could be colleagues, bosses, managers, and informational sessions. What interim jobs might she hold before she becomes a project manager? And finally, she needs a survival plan, plan C. Now, for a lot of us, this is going to be something like retail or, a survival job, but not for everybody. I have a friend, database expert. His plan C survival job was just being an IT person at a well-known computer company that's still around in the area. I won't say the name. He had a couple of stints at that survival company because they were always hiring. And he'd stay there for a couple of years until the economy improved and move up. Okay, so survival jobs, something you should consider, but it can differ for everybody. Now, in this case, remember, Pat is working at the national chain, and she is the mortgage approval team supervisor. So she realizes, hey, if I stay here, I don't have to get my MBA. I've got a network in place, relationships. I could probably become a branch manager. And that would give her a little bit more autonomy, keep her going. So don't forget ABC career planning as you go through your own plan. Okay, 2 slides to go. We're almost done. Then we can get to Q&A. First thing I want to say here, career reinvention is not as easy as some career experts depict it. But the benefits, if you do this properly, can be tremendous. I mean, look at this, 78% of people who say they've done it found increased job satisfaction, great sense of purpose. 76% of people, significant increase in their skill set. And according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, hey, once you make a transition, you are probably going to make a bit more money than you thought. And look at this, average income increase, 10 to 20% within 2 years of making the transition. Now, I know I hit you with a lot of questions, a lot of the need for planning. But what I want to end with on this slide is your biggest challenge is going to be overcoming FUD, the fear, uncertainty, and doubt, which is already in your head or it's in the people around you. You will be reminded of your responsibilities. Okay? But if you are able to manage everything, you stand an excellent chance of success. Oh, one more I'd forgotten. LinkedIn, 58% chance more likely to have essential traits of adaptability and resilience. And if you've been worn down by the job search, you know how important those can be. So I got just one more slide, and this is a brief list of resources for you going forward. So again, most of what I've discussed today relates to theory and planning. Planning and deciding, pretty easy maybe. But the next and hardest step is going to be the actual doing. To help you get started with that, here are 3 really, really good books, which I hope will be of use to you as you decide to actually do, and you do. So Tammy Guler-Loeb, who's presented for Tewksbury before, has a book that presents 22 stories of successful career transition. Switchers is very tactical, goes step by step. And finally, the 4 disciplines of execution presents a set of practices that have been shown to work when anyone's trying to implement a major change in their life. It includes steps from measuring and checking your progress towards a goal. This book is so good that the head of a major Massachusetts state agency actually gives a copy to every new hire. So I hope these resources and this presentation prove useful to you, and I wish you the courage, the luck, and skill to make your dream a reality. And it looks like we've got some time left to do some Q&A. So let's see if Robert's back.
Robert is back. So folks, let's give Ed a big virtual round of applause for a great presentation. And let's take 15 minutes or so of audience questions and comments. If you have a comment, please type it into the chat. If you have a question, please type it into the Q&A. I'm going to address all written comments and questions first. And if we have time, I will promote people so they can ask questions via audio or video. But let's try to stick with written questions first. Tamara asks, can you speak to ways you've seen people overcome the real and or perceived impacts of ageism if you're a job seeker and say you're over 59?
Robert, that is a great question. I want to thank Tamara for asking that, because I have been invited by the National Agency Professional Association of Resume Writers to present on ageism at the annual conference next April. So I am actually so in need of challenges and, I will say, accomplishments. So over the next several months, folks, send them to me. Send me more questions, send me more challenges. But for Tamar and all of you here today, right now, I will give you some really, I think, good examples. These are all real. I worked with a woman some years ago whose father graduated law school at age 59. My father became a tractor trailer truck driver, which was your Class A license in Massachusetts. I'm not sure now if it's just CDL or what. At age 59 also, he was asked at a job interview, where do you see yourself in 10 years? He leveraged referrals to get the job. The supervisor where he was going to work and drive the trucks overruled the HR people who said, no, don't hire him, he's too old. Okay. And I know a guy down in Rhode Island named Bob. Bob was told in an interview, you're overqualified. He answered, I'm not overqualified, I'm 100% qualified. And I am actually working on my presentation for next April because it must be perfect. I intend to do some rehearsals with groups and people. So folks, keep in touch with me. I'm already working on it and coming up with specific steps and things that people can do. One last thing I will mention. I know from an AARP MCOA survey, one of the top 4 things mature job seekers do wrong is not answer the question. And I know this from reviewing my materials. And I've had interviews with people where I ask them questions and they go off on their rehearsed stories. and they're not answering the question. So please, that seems to be a very big weakness of mature job seekers.
And Ed, if you want to rehearse your presentation to this group, just let me know.
Thank you so much.
All right. Let's see. Christina says, this is a great presentation. Well done. Audrey says, this was amazing. Thank you. Margot says, this was so excellent. Yes, Ed will be sharing his slideshow. That's that. Kathy asks, from your work, what behaviors or habits on the part of job seekers makes you optimistic about their future success?
I have a slide that I've presented to the MCOA before that talks about surveys of mature workers and surveys of younger people, maybe managers. And one thing that the charts did was put the areas where mature job seekers scored highest for both groups, the other mature people and then the other younger people. And a lot of where the commonalities, meaning positives, came about was in they'll work hard, they'll leverage their experience, and they'll stick around. And all the surveys show young people, to their credit, they have seen how their parents were treated, and they're not buying into this work hard for us, we'll reward you. So they work only for the money. Most older people don't need support counseling and need trigger warnings. Sorry if there are any younger people in the audience here, but the surveys are showing this. Young people out of college, not all, but many, are totally unprepared for the workplace. Perhaps some of you have seen the TikTok videos where young people, after 1 week, 40 or 45 hours of work, are crying. How can people do this? Okay. There are your advantages. These are the things I've seen that I'm talking about right now that are in your favor, and you can bring these out in a cover letter or your resume or informational sessions.
All right. Well, if anyone has any further comments or questions, now is the time. Otherwise, we'll wrap up a little early.
I can't believe this is perfect for everybody. Come on, got to be some questions.
All right. So Linda has a nice long question. Linda, she's been on a transition journey to cybersecurity for the last 3 years. I completed a 6-month training program, participated in a mentorship program, and I'm building a home lab using Promox and working on some sort of really technical certification. However, I still apply for entry-level SOC positions, network, and of course, volunteer, but there seems to still be an age barrier. How can I target my activities for better results?
So by applying, I'm going to assume for the moment she's applying online. Okay, we all know just about everybody applies online. In fact, too many people make it the focus of their strategy, or that is my strategy. Need to leverage relationships. So as I talked about in this video, you can't assume they're going to honor that new certificate. So I think you're on the right track, but you've got to start building up the network, join some, for example, security related groups on LinkedIn. Maybe even go to a security conference. I know they have those. Get an informational session from somebody. And the last thing I'll say is add in a couple of jobs that aren't entry level. Go for a mid-level job, see what the response is.
Great. Kathy, thanks you for answering her question previously. She thought you gave a great answer. And I apologize if I'm mispronouncing, but Anshuli says, I am having a really tough time finding a marketing job, either remote or near Shrewsbury. It's taking too long to find a job. Recruiters just don't come back. please share any tips, any recommendations on how to find a marketing job, Ed.
Unfortunately, as my presentation said, I left marketing to go into IT long ago because I was having trouble landing a good marketing job. But again, a lot of it comes down to the networking, and also through the networking, luck. Really good book that can help in cases like this when you're having trouble seeing how can I leverage the network? How can I get the dominoes lined up so something will fall? There's a book called, I think it's Luck is No Accident. And it's by Crumboldt, who's one of the notable career counselors in the United States. But another thing you can do, though, is start acting as if you're a marketer. I said join some groups on LinkedIn. Start posting. Put up your own ideas. See if you can engage some other people.
I think with that, Ed, we've exhausted. Oh no! Every time I say that, Ed, something else pops up. We still have plenty of time though. Marie says, I have also made career transitions from training and systems analysis to now academic advising and adjunct professor with a master's degree in intercultural relations. What is your advice for those of us looking for part-time roles, specifically in diversity, equity, and inclusion, and are not as common as during the pandemic? Also looking in higher ed as multicultural advising. What is your advice?
I'm not sure how much I can add because, again, that's not quite my sweet spot. But one of the things to consider is, government. State and federal government definitely value intercultural relations. Or in addition to state and federal governments, NGOs, non-government organizations, places that work with the governments themselves. Very often they value those things. I rarely tell people to move. I could have joked earlier about, well, move away from Worcester. You have to go where the jobs are. But one of the things to consider if you're looking for something that truly uses intercultural, go to a place that's intercultural if possible. For example, if one does speak a second or a third language, see if you can find something overseas or remote from overseas. I have known people who have moved to Europe for a couple of years. Again, I don't say this lightly. I'm just trying to brainstorm here for them because right now there is the liberal arts apocalypse, so higher ed is pretty tough. And I know for a fact, having started off in higher ed, that was my first big job out of school. They really do prefer to hire the kids right out, of college with their degrees.
Susan notes that if you're interested in a marketing job, you might want to look at NEDMA, which I think stands for the New England Direct Marketing Association. Okay. Susan says they have job postings and events. It's a good networking group. So NEDMA, and I'll copy and paste that into the chat so everyone can see it. All right, now we have some more questions. Bill wants to know, can you talk more on why certifications or courses do not always pan out?
So a lot of it, in my opinion, goes back to, again, the implicit bias. Still, mature workers are seen as old dogs. You can't teach an old dog new tricks, they say. And I know for a fact, having lived it, that colleges, universities, they think of students as almost like internal hires. Twice in my life, I landed jobs and then was told you cannot start right away because we have to advertise the position. And one of them was becoming full-time at the registrar's office at a nearby university. Okay, so they prefer that. The other thing I want to convey is I actually know some people who a few years ago were the employment counselors at I'll say one of the high-tech training agencies that, they have a program where you can learn things, and it can take 6 or 8 months. And one time, one of these employment counselors showed up at a career counselor's class we were both taking, and she was down. I could tell it. And I asked her, "Why are you feeling so down tonight? I can tell you're drained of energy." She said, "Oh, this happens every May." She says, "I've been pumping up the students for the last 6, 8 months, and the course ends at the end of this month, and I know the reality, what's going to happen. Very few of them are going to get jobs. Some will. But again, there's this bias, not only against the older, mature worker, we'll say, but also these programs. Okay. Generally, they are populated and tended by the older, mature workers. Okay. It's a tough uphill fight.
Yeah. So next question, I'm not going to mention the person's name, but she writes, what are your thoughts about introducing personal aspects of one's life in connection with networking and searches? Traditionally, personal life was kept fenced off from professional. But in my case, I've been on a cancer timeout because I chose to focus on the academics. Oh, I'm sorry, career. I said cancer. I misread. In my case, I have been on a career timeout because I chose to focus on the academic success of my teen, identified with dyslexia at the age of 10. I've used lots of advocacy skills and communication skills. I would like to mention this personal situation, both to explain my time off and to highlight any relevant skills. What are your thoughts?
So post-pandemic, time off is more amenable, acceptable. Now, I still like to say employers don't want people who have been sitting at home eating chocolates and bonbons and watching TV. But it has become much more amenable to hear that, yes, you are taking care of loved ones, raising a family. The thing to do is, in an informational session, sound it out with somebody who's already in that business or field. So an example I have given to others before involves a cover letter. I was working at Mass Hire at the time, and I had a last-minute 4:30 appointment or something where somebody came in, wanted me to look at their cover letter. They were applying to an agency, and they said, "This is really personal, and I'm wondering, should I put this down?" And it basically talked about they were caring for someone who, I can't recall if it was cancer or brain damage, but they were applying to an agency that dealt with that problem. And I said, by all means, do that. Now, coincidentally, that same evening, later the same evening, was my practice interview group in Framingham. I walk in, a couple of people had arrived before me. They're sitting and chatting. And one of them, as I listen, I realize they're asking a similar question. And it was the same job, the same role, just total coincidence. And the other job seeker was telling the person, no, don't put that down. That's too personal. And I didn't want to reveal that somebody else that I'd just been talking with 40 minutes before was applying for the same job. But and that was pre-pandemic. I feel even now, if it matches the mission and shows alignment. Some of you know Karen Sousey. She was my project manager at the NCOPE. She sent me a cover letter she wrote based on my precepts. And she wrote in the cover letter when she applied for a volunteer position now. She wrote how her father had the issue with, and I forget exactly what it was Ronald McDonald House helps with, but a relative of hers had the same issue. She wrote about it, and she said, Ed, I turned down the position or withdrew from the process because I actually landed a full-time job. But before that, they told me, wow, yours was the best cover letter we ever received. So there are several examples for you that, yes, it can work.
Linda, Nancy says that you should check out Mass General Brigham. They have a large digital department and cybersecurity roles at various levels. So that was for Linda earlier. Final question goes to Susan. Susan asks, how important is additional learning and certifications that you can get while unemployed? Do HR folks see this as added value? So why don't you hammer this point home, Ed, to end us here?
Again, it's going to be a positive. It's best if it aligns with, the place where you want to go. They don't want spaghetti thrown at a wall. But again, they don't want people who did nothing. So, hey, I was unemployed for 8 months, so I enrolled in these courses. I increased my skills. That's going to be a positive.
So folks, let's give Ed a big virtual round of applause as we come up at 3 o'clock. Just to note that we are off next Monday, the following Monday, which I believe is the 9th, 2 o'clock. We're going to have a gentleman who is the co-founder of My Networking Central, and he'll be talking about how to use LinkedIn as a search engine for job seekers. Ed, any last words from you before we wrap it up?
Be persistent. And a little reminder about the ages, dealing with ageism. One of the first questions we had, folks, contact me, send me your leads and needs. I'd love it if you can help me and you'll help yourselves. Thank you.
Great job as always, Ed. Folks, look for an email from me later today with a link to this recording and a PDF of the slides. And as a reminder, when you exit the Zoom, please take 60 seconds and fill out the feedback survey that pops up. So thank you all so much, and I'll see many of you in 2 weeks. Thanks again, Ed.